forget, is consistently the best regular season team in the LCK.
Yeah, this is a squad that has never placed below second in the regular season and never placed below second in the playoffs of LCK. Sure, they never won the title. They've lost to the best team in Korea each time, but they have for 3 splits shown they are the second best team in Korea, as far as I can tell here. So we'll see what they can do out of this one. HKA, of course, 3rd seed from the LMS, had a fairly easy play and run and a very tight game against Cloud9 yesterday, so we can definitely see them put on a good performance here.
And they're already opening with a lot of power here. The Syndra that we saw them flex between Mission and Unified in that play-in stage, as well as that Akali that can move around. A big deal for Hong Kong Attitude in the plans was putting 3Z on something that was powerful, getting Mission through the laning phase and doing, they had the ability to play through a lot of these different lanes here, and now they have some of the champions to be able to do it.
And I think it's wise to get Chovy back on that Irelia. He is very clean on that champion if the rest of the game around him is still going right. I'd like the Lee Sin as well. And the Rek'Sai's pretty much, I think, what Hong Kong Attitude has to lock in here. Otherwise, it would get banned out phase 2.
Yeah, I think the Rek'Sai is a super good answer here into the Lee Sin. Regardless, I want Crash on a jungler that can have a heavy early game impact here for his lanes. The Rek'Sai is going to be it. And now I just want to see how Crash works alongside his lanes, because he's had up and downs working with those players throughout his tenure here on Hong Kong Attitude. And specifically, where does the Syndra go? Because I think Syndra plus Rek'Sai is an almost unbeatable 2v2.
See what comes through here right now. HKA needs physical damage somewhere in their lineup. Unified kind of affecting a marksman out of him, but we'll see what does come through. The Yuumi still left up for what it's worth. The Garen Yuumi comp could come through.
It definitely could, and I actually liked how Hong Kong Attitude waited until phase 2 to lock it in last game. But the first phase Trist ban by Griffin, I think, makes the Garen Yuumi less threatening, because even though the Garen Yuumi can do this massive beef wall front line that can push people around the map without also having some sustained damage, the execution complexity of the team composition raises a fair bit.
And obviously you could say Kayle is an option, but they've already locked in their 2 solo laners. Presumably, if they were to go for that Garen Yuumi, that would lock Syndra in towards the middle lane. So I think that this is going to be less about taking that sort of scaling option and more about looking for early game firepower. Is it the Thresh that got banned away by Griffin? Is it going to be something else that can pack quite the punch in the 2v2?
Well, it's looking like Xayah right here, based on the marksman bans coming out of HKA. They say, well, the best one left up is Xayah, and that's ours, so unless Griffin bans it away, red team gets dibs on that pick, and that's the glaring choice for me right here. The question is, does Griffin get rid of that, or is there more they're afraid of?
I will say, Viper gave an interview recently that said he wanted to prove that he can play other stuff in the bot lane. He'd proved it already in 2018 as one of the most innovative bottom laners after patch 8.11 that kind of temporarily threw the pro game into upheaval. So I don't think he has to pick it right now, and I think Hong Kong Attitude is also keeping the options open to do something different. Leona Syndra is a devastating 2v2 kill lane.
That's true. They can always flex around and find themselves something else in the mid lane. It won't be Trist or Lucian, which are the common mid lane marksman, but I guess we'll see. Viper wants to play blind Ezreal, it looks like, and you're looking at scary duo lanes with burst damage. Well, okay, Arcade Shift can get you away from Leona or away from the Syndra in time.
And that maybe makes me think, does Tarzan want to play towards the top side of the map? Again, in this game, you know, they could put the Irelia there. They have the option to take another Jayce, very strong solo laner. That is going to be the Jayce that we've seen Sword on so many times in the regular season. And this telegraphs it. He's going top.
Exactly. I think, and it's obviously a bit of speculation, that Sword was subbed out in the regular season because of performance in champion pool. His Jayce is fine, especially when they're able to play around it. And so much of their game against G2, aside from the fact when he died, TP'd back and died again, he still ended with the highest CSD at 15 of any other player at this tournament. So in some ways, it did work to play through the top lane. It's about what do they do next. And that Sion is an interesting one.
I really like this here with the Sion, because of course you lose the laning phase against the Jayce. He outranges you, he can poke you down, but Sion can take quite a beating in that top lane and then offer some pretty good gank assistance, especially when level 6 does come around. He can either go for kills inside of the lane, scale up into be a super tanky monster, or use that to roam around the rest of the map.
I see what you're saying as far as the hard engage ability of all of them being able to crash, and I think that's absolutely what Hong Kong Attitude can do. I would be concerned about him being a pinata of gold for a kleptomatic Jayce, because that is why we stopped seeing top lane tanks.
And speaking of champions, look at the swap not coming through on Griffin. Viper's on
There it
the
is.
Irelia.
All right.
Chovy is going to play the mid lane Ezreal. So which Viper's the better Irelia? We're going to find out today here as Griffin brings down to the bottom lane. And it's a very aggressive 2-on-2 to hope they can pop the Syndra.
I actually love this now. It makes me think, does Tarzan actually want to play around the top side of the map? Because if you have all that CC, if you have the all-in threat, maybe you just leave Sword on an island. Use the Kleptomancy, get your money. Because bottom lane in early levels, you can jump on Unified and punish.
Griffin, one of the most exciting teams to come out of South Korea, kept missing Worlds, kept missing MSI. Now they are here, and it was a slow start, but they've got a shot at redemption right now. HKA, they are expected to beat here.
Uh-oh.
Early invade. There's a
But
lot of
the
people
rest of the
there.
team is around. Full charge! Sion Q! And it's an evisceration. The 3-man stun buys some time, but the re-engage is already here. And forget your expectations. HKA on 3 kills before 1 minute.
What is Griffin thinking? Walking into a team that even has a Sion at level 1. Blind brush check, just going in there. Total disaster for Griffin at level 1.
And now Hong Kong Attitude have gotten kills in every single lane. You look at the play one more time. I mean, Crash sees them coming for so long, and Hong Kong Attitude, they predicted this play to come in. Lehends going for the dive, and then it is a 4-man knockup. Absolutely killer.
You just don't do that. But Griffin does it anyway, just so eager to try and get Tarzan some type of early game advantage. They just, as you say, give up kills to Sion, Syndra, and Leona.
And now this, makes the early game so much more explosive because both of our junglers held on to their flashes. You see a missing flash for Chovy in the mid lane on the Ezreal, maybe a little bit harder to punish, but a flashless Lehends down bottom side on the Nautilus, all of a sudden it's a lot harder for him to go forward. When there's a Leona on the other side, both of these teams have the assistance to get their junglers involved down bot.
The saving grace, at least, is those missing flashes are matched perfectly by the opposing side. So these are, those lanes are volatile, to be clear. It's an entirely flashless mid and flashless supports. So we'll see what does come through. And kind of thankfully for Tarzan, it was only assists here for Crash. So he's not incredibly rich that he's going to instantly complete Warrior. So you kind of can expect a fairly equal jungle presence here.
Yeah, and I actually think that it's not immediately going to mean that the early game is incredibly explosive. In fact, it might end up being the opposite. So part of the game plan for Griffin, we thought, was going to be playing around a top lane Jayce. As I have to hold my
Very
point
important
to see if
stuff by
Lehends goes
Kaiwing.
in. The top lane Jayce, however, with the kill and 2 assists going to Sion, his armor stacking may actually prevent Sword from being able to get that power.
And now a battle 2-on-2 in this river. Crash pushed away, but the redive comes in. Knock up there, decent damage across. They're still chasing in. Oh,
wow.
Look at that mystic shot. He predicts the play, and now Mission. That's going to be Mission failed. Double kill in the mid lane.
Chovy had the read to land all the skill shots, but it's Tarzan going for that contest in the bot side river. He knew that flashes were down bottom side. He knew Crash was pathing down towards that side of the map too, so Tarzan needed to make that play happen. Otherwise, his bot lane 2v2 has to give up all control. On top of the 2 kills they get, it's also the added safety for this bottom lane of Irelia and Nautilus that does want to be playing a little bit more aggressively in those engages.
I got to say, when Griffin lost those 3 kills, he felt like, okay, maybe their whole squad's in flames, but I think it was just a choice to dismiss the cynics and just see that, hey, they can win from behind.
They're already up in gold. So watch Chovy in this fight. So yes, Tarzan goes in, but the accuracy of the W shift and then right there.
Full prediction.
Incredible mystic shot there by Chovy, showing off his mechanics. And then they have double red buff, so M1ssion has no chance of escaping.
Yeah, I do also have to call out Crash at the start of that play because he used his tunnel forward without mid lane priority, and then he also unburrows to try and clear away a ward in that pixel bush. So he didn't really have the CC. He didn't have the escape tools either to try to run away from that fight when it was very obvious Chovy was going to be the first one there, ready to go for the 2v2.
All right, take a breather. Check out what this game looks like right now. Mid lane's being pushed in. Early lead, very early sheen for Chovy.
Yeah, and speaking of early, that was the earliest first blood since 2015 tracking in World's history. So Griffin so badly wanted to kill and give some stuff over to HKA. They just had to run right out of base to do it.
They just wanted to set some records.
Yep.
Man.
Earliest recorded first blood. Beautiful. We'll see how the rest of this game goes, because so far, pretty bloody. 1 kill per minute.
Yeah, and looking where the... All right, we had 3 kills in 1 minute. I think the average is going down here, Phreak.
We started 3 kills a minute. Unbelievable.
It was crazy. Looking at this mid lane matchup, though, Chovy, off of that kill, now has a completed Sheen up against just the cloth armor there from M1ssion. This was already going to be a really good matchup for Chovy. You know, they flexed Viper, or they flexed the Irelia to Viper in that bottom lane, so they could have this ranged advantage in towards mid lane. You can already see it building up. That's now 10 CS for Chovy, and with that more powerful first base of the Sheen as opposed to something like the Tier, he should be able to harass a lot more. And because he's playing against a melee champion, it means landing W's through the creep wave and then stepping up to proc the auto attack is a lot more viable, and you usually never get to pull that off in bottom lane. So he accesses more power in his kit.
Yeah, I'd heard a lot about mid lane Ezreal and scrims as a gank actually comes in bottom as well. Here's Tarzan.
Pretty big stun, but Viper wants to put in damage now. Here comes the re-engage. They found the stun. They found the chase down, and Viper's going to be defanged. And the chase down maybe towards Lehends. Ult comes across. Decent damage. Might mean a re-engage.
Yeah, that was a play that Viper really wanted to make, but the fact that Crash was there for the counter gank and it was not necessarily synced meant he ended up just dying by going in too early in a 2v3.
It's always going to be a struggle playing these double melee bottom lane. Me and Dracos actually play this kind of stuff all the time here. But whenever you go for the all-ins, there's no real escape. There's no running away from it because you do go into melee range to deal your damage here. So as Lehends, Viper dove on in, Viper was always going to be hung out to dry without minions to try and retreat onto with his Q.
Yeah, and the Drake is going to be set up next, but I got a question, Ender, Phreak. Why does 3Z have a dagger?
I was gonna, yeah. We both saw that. Triforce Sion coming in, maybe.
Maybe?
I mean, it's not Wit's End.
I have never seen this before.
Because there's been a lot of different Sion builds. There's been the Titanic Hydra ZZ one who just dies and tries to hit turrets. There's like a Sterix Gauge Rush. Yep. All of them seem to revolve around AD and health. Very few attack speed Sions have I seen. So we will see. This is one of the great mysteries to me right now.
What if it was a cloth harmony misclick, Like, that's theoretically possible, and it's like, well, too late now. I'm in
Another
lane.
300 gold item?
Yeah.
Maybe.
We'll wait and see. I know there's someone who, has watched his solo history and is like, guys, it's this build, I trust. And yeah, we missed it, I'm sorry. We'll see what comes through. Regardless, Sword down in CS. Now, to be fair, that is the extra kill coming in from the level 1, so he had an item deficit the whole time. But Sword doing his best to, I guess, go equal in the Sion lane.
Yeah, I think so much of that. I mean, look, Ninja Tabi Bramblevest, he sold it.
Okay, he sold it. There we go.
It was a misclick.
I was right. It was supposed to be cloth armor. Kaiwing running away now.
Yeah, as expected, and I think the fact that Sion got 1-0-2 at the start actually really inhibits Griffin's overall game plan in this game. Like, yes, they did get the kills in the mid lane, or in the mid and jungle to equalize the gold a little bit, but the fact that they can't build up that advantage is very detrimental to their overall strategy.
I really like this move coming out from Hong Kong Attitude. Level
Tarzan
6 on Unified, so much power.
Ooh, lands the Q.
It's stolen.
Oh, he smites a little too early. 20 health left over. Gets over the wall just barely. Elise doesn't die for the sin, but the Inferno Drake does come over to HKA.
That was a bold 50-50 to go for right there. As Tarzan barely off on the smite.
Yeah, actually, when I'm jungling against Lee Sin, I feel like it's like just a 75 or an 80-20 for the Lee. So I'm surprised Tarzan missed that. One more auto attack on the Infernal and it would have had it, but I think what happened is HKA did actually stop damage when the Lee Sin Q landed, which is good by them to communicate and say, oh crap. But most of the time when Lee Sin weaves through to get a 1,000 health Drake, Sonic waved, he just gets it. So
Yeah.
Big move there for HKA to get the Infernal Drake.
Yeah, there's a few of those types of champions that almost always turn those 50-50s into advantageous smite battles. The Rek'Sai, eventually, without, many points in E, doesn't do that much damage, but later on you do have that true damage as well. So when we get into these situations later on the next Infernal Drake or potentially around the Baron, it's always going to be a really high pressure moment for both these players as they try to calculate the damage in their heads and try to land that spell.
Well, back to a holding pattern now with that Drake gone. Second Infernal going to spawn in 3.5 minutes, so that's going to be very important for both these teams to get some control over the bottom side of the map. Infernal's very highly priced here.
I do like the itemization coming through from Viper. Full MR right off the bat. He's going to be going for Wit's End first item, which does make a lot of sense when you're against a Syndra in the bottom lane who has a lot of single target burst damage. And now that Irelia's W doesn't actually block magic damage anymore, you can't have that same counter effectiveness up against the likes of Syndra where you can block out a lot of that damage. Will also mean that Viper could potentially lane against Mission later on in the match.
I want to point out in general, there's not a lot of physical damage on HKA. Sion, not that big of a threat, and the Rek'Sai falls off after about 15 minutes. You get the Warrior, that's nice, but it's just not the same. So MR itemization going to be very strong here for Griffin.
But I also think HKA is strong right now, which is why they've sent 5 people to the Rift Herald, and they're kind of daring Griffin to come and fight them, and I don't think Griffin's going to take the bait.
It'll be the Herald pickup. Second neutral objective here goes to HKA. Crash getting the better so far of Tarzan in that game. And it's going to be maybe a very early summon to the top side. Unified is going to be already up to this top side. Won't take the Herald just yet. They will summon it later. He'll get the recall first.
I actually think that would have been a great window for them to try and make that play up top side where, Griffin didn't actually have multiple members stacked in bottom lane to go for a counter push of their own. So maybe dropping the ball a little bit right there with some of the information they were lacking, not necessarily knowing how many members of Griffin were on that top side of the map. Regardless, though, they still will chip out at least one plate. And now Crash is going to continue to play around this duo because they are so powerful in that 2 versus 2. And if Tarzan isn't around, covering for Griffin's top side of the map, it's going to be trouble.
Yeah, here it is. There's not enough people here to potentially fight the Rift Herald. It's at least
3v2.
2 plates from this charge.
Yep. Now, there is some extra armor MR on the thing from the plates recently dropping. One auto attack comes in, make sure the gold comes through. You get basically a longer leash range on gold as long as you damage the turret in the last 15 seconds. So you saw Unified make sure to walk up, land the auto attack. Now he can play safe against the charge, guarantee the plates. Gold goes to him. I've seen so many players fail to get the local gold from plates by playing so gun-shy.
So one thing I like to see from how Griffin are assigning their players to these lanes is it's actually Sword going up top lane at the moment. Because look at his matchup against the Sion. He has Youmuu's Ghostblade, which gives him that lethality. But against Ninja Tabis plus, the Bramble Vest as well, it really doesn't have that much efficiency. All that armor is going to cut down the damage that Sword is going to be able to deal. So for a while there, they had Sword in the 2v2 with Lehends, and it was actually Viper going bot lane to pick up some levels for himself, because when you play these bot lane carries, you're actually going to be very under-leveled here. Level 7 on Irelia as opposed to the 9 of these other solo lanes.
And I think that matchup dependency also kind of brings into the question of how's the next 10 minutes, 20 minutes of this game going to play out, because HKA doesn't have a traditional marksman, and as we mentioned, doesn't have very much physical damage. So an MR stacked Irelia, or an Ezreal even with a lot of gold, should potentially have a field day, but Hong Kong Attitude with the second Infernal coming up, potentially have so much immediate power at this moment, before anyone can actually shred through a Sion, like a stacked Irelia or a stacked Ezreal. So I think HKA is going to be very happy about this Infernal spawn in 30 seconds, and if Griffin is playing it safe, they might not even contest Infernal 2, which seems a little bit crazy, but I think it might happen.
Yeah, so Chovy is TPing back in towards mid. Viper will have the ability to access his teleport as well to get down bottom side too. But right now, as you said, Hong Kong Attitude with all the engaged power and the upfront burst damage in team fights. That's what they're always going to be trying to access here, as quick fights for them where they instantly burst out 1 or 2 of the Griffin carries should favor them. But the longer the fight goes on, the more value the Ezreal and the Jayce poke is going to give to the side of Griffin.
Well, the Drake is up right now, and you've got pretty simple Sion versus Irelia matchup up in the top side. The MR not as valuable in that matchup, but the other 4v4 is sitting here, and this is Griffin with the poke squad, right? Irelia the least useful in a fight like this. Well, but the Jayce Ezreal poke looks great.
Yeah, Hong Kong Attitude need to start the Drake right now because Mission has now lost priority over mid lane, so it's getting a little bit awkward for them as they're dancing around this objective without the pressure. Now that they have cleared out the mid lane, Mission can rotate on down here, and that's when we expect them to start up the objective. But you have to keep in mind, Kaiwing already taken a little bit of damage, and that's going to build up.
Griffin ran out of control wards first, so they actually can't get clean vision inside the Infernal Drake pit, which will make them check a little bit. But the more poke they get, the harder it would be for Honkai Attitude to engage. Sion can definitely just charge through. This is a great angle if Griffin moves into the river.
I would ult. TP's going to come in right now. So
Here we go.
Let's go. A full 5-on-5 in the river. Not going to find anyone for the knockup. Here comes the ulti across, though. Double knockup there on the Griffin side. Stopwatch prize is second, but 3Z, where can he even go? He flashes backwards, going to stay alive just now. So Mission's going to walk back. There's the rehook, though. You'll come across as well, and 3Z going to take a nap. Down he goes for this one. They'll knock down the passive as well, and the river control goes to Griffin.
I would not let 3Z drive me anywhere right there. Whiffs completely unable to find a target. And in a moment in the game where Hong Kong Attitude had the setup, had the initiation tools onto Sword, who was TPing in and so vulnerable, it is now Griffin that bounced back and find the Infernal.
I think overall Griffin played that cautiously, but quite well. I also feel like Hong Kong Attitude delayed several chances they had to engage. When they had control ward power in the river, they needed to be the ones to fight and do that much earlier before Griffin was able to kind of see the Sion from a mile away. I don't think they needed the Sion to be able to ult in to do a Leona ultimate, but as soon as this does happen, you can see Ezreal, Elise, both very hard to hit. Definitely should have gone for Viper. There's a static teleport target that 3Z could go in for, and then because not only had Hong Kong Attitude been poked, but also because they had started the Infernal Drake, no one can support the Sion while it takes eons for Griffin to kill him.
And it's always going to be that first attempt from Hong Kong Attitude that will tell you whether or not they win or lose the fight, because they have these big, powerful ultimate cooldowns they want to burst through to get the pick, the CC2 from Leona and the Sion in the top lane. You must find, a true strike on that initial engage, or you will just be run down and cut down. That was sort of a preview of the fights to come here as time continues to work against the side of Hong Kong Attitude.
One thing I do want to point out, though, on the flip side here, we've talked about how they're very magic damage heavy, don't have much physical damage. The same is true here for Griffin, right? Griffin is 4 AD champions. I mean, I guess there's some magic out of the Irelia with Wit's End and her passive, but you've got 2 actual tanks willing to stack armor against them. So I'm actually curious, whoever kills Sion in a real team fight. I think in both cases, it's kind of hard to kill frontliners, again, because Syndra's your only consistent damage, but you'll have a 300 armor, 4,000 health Sion at the same side.
I love that point, because both teams will have things that they have to struggle against, right? It's both teams may have trouble killing each other depending on how they're fighting, which you would think would favor Griffin and a chance that they are the lowest combined kills per minute team heading into the World Championship, but more so I feel like that stat of them having low kill games is just due to their risk aversion when behind and their objective focus when they're ahead. And this is still a very even game.
And ultimately, when we look at this itemization and who benefits more from building tanky stats, I can't help but feel like Irelia is going to be that champion, because with the Wet's End and the Mercury Treads, it's very easy to build these resistances and then stay alive super long in these later game team fights, whereas it's really hard for Mission to get armor outside of, I guess, the Zhonya's Hourglass. That's really going to be the only thing he can itemize into.
Yeah, and I think if we ever get an isolated Irelia versus Sion duel, if Viper gets, Wit's End and Trinity Force, I think the Conqueror is just going to be enough.
Yeah.
I feel like that's really why we've stopped seeing Sion. Sion can still be a mega tank, but he will just lose an extended fight to an Irelia with Conqueror.
People also forget that magic resistance works really well against items like Bramble Vest that's going to be returning magic damage to you, the Sunfire Cape as well, so that sort of damage that 3Z is itemized into that also gives them the tanky effectiveness is going to be cut down pretty significantly by Viper.
But the important thing to point out is it will still take a long time to kill the Sion in any team fight setup, so Griffin will either need to isolate him like they did in that Drake fight or find immediate backline access, because front to backing against that Sion would be troubling.
Well, right now you're going to see the attempt at the side lane. Gets a bit of damage down across that bottom turret, but not enough to knock it down. Equal gold, equal Drake so far in this game. 18 minutes in. Very, very tight one. Keep in mind, HKA was the world's leading gold deficit of the group stage yesterday, and now smack equal with their opponents here. Griffin, a team that on paper, they were not supposed to beat, but they're holding up against.
Yeah, they were down 2,800 gold at 15 minutes against Cloud9, but then actually stayed in the game for around 50 minutes. It ended up being an incredibly long one. It does speak, though, to a little bit of inability to close out games. We saw a lot of that in the play-in group stage, because we've actually had Hong Kong Attitude playing here for a while, so they should be a little bit more familiar with playing in this World's meta, and we have seen, I guess, a little bit of that out of this game, but still, plenty of League of Legends to be played.
I think what we need to see coming through from Hong Kong Attitude, moving into this game is, again, it feels very similar to other games where we do have a lot of these strong pick tools where it comes down to vision and owning the river. If you can own the river and you have great scouting tools like the Rek'Sai, right, then you can set up for the Syndra stuns, for the Leona engages, and try to work with just your river control to move 3Z towards the rest of your team. If 3Z can get a push going in a side lane and then find a window where you have a numbers advantage around mid, it becomes very easy to find those types of fights.
And Chovy's a few spells away from turning that Manamune into a Merman.
Yep.
Which is, if we think back to a few years ago when we saw a lot of mid Ezreal, like such an amazing power spike, because not only does he have the same 2-item power spike bot lane Ezreal has, he has more levels for that power. So right now, setting up mid, getting mid priority, moving towards Cloud Drake, absolutely what Griffin should be doing.
And now he asks, does he want to itemize into the magic damage coming through next to diversify the team's damage profile just a little bit? Right now it is Griffin with control of the river. I don't think Hong Kong Attitude are going to contest this. They don't have the same itemization coming through that Griffin do, especially, as you mentioned, around that middle lane. So it will just be a clean pickup here for Griffin.
Easy one done because of their mid control. Is it simply wave from the other sides of the map? Sure, Sion is getting tanky, and that's going to be great. That's going to be useful. He's going to be a menace. The question is, can he do enough, though, across this game? As Sword just takes the rest of the farm, and made his presence known mid lane, claimed a Cloud Drake for it. 5 minutes down the line, we'll see Ocean spawn as well. That'd be great to see for HKA to help withstand some of the poke. Unlikely we're going to get it, though.
One thing that is fun to look at, because Griffin aren't running a standard marksman in the bottom lane, is where does Viper actually go in these lanes? And for me, I think the itemization is pretty telling. When we look at Sword, right, he's going full lethality even against this tank Sion, right? Where maybe you could go a Black Cleaver, or even we've seen Blade of the Ruined King be a good item into these tanks. So Sword actually is telegraphing that in the mid to late game, he doesn't want to be side laning. He wants to group with his team and poke, and that's where I think someone like Viper could take over the mantle of running into the side lane.
Yeah, it definitely means he doesn't want to side lane against Sion.
Right.
The lethality could be better against the Akali, and I think in terms of the rest of the lane setup, it is as if the Ezreal was where the bot laner usually is at 21 minutes, which ends up being in the mid lane. The overall point I'm trying to make is the champions are suited to where they should be, not necessarily the players at this stage in the game.
And Viper has now caught up in terms of levels too. He's one level over the side of Unified and just dragging behind slightly the other soul laners in this game, where the gap was 2+ levels earlier on in the match. It now is just 1 level, and he's going to continue to pick up solo EXP here too to catapult himself further ahead.
Pretty good on this one. We can see, though, still a 500 gold deficit here for Griffin. Not very meaningful as they continue to siege down to the mid lane. Kaiwing takes that shot again and hitting Unified. It's a lot of damage coming across there. Is going to be backwards again. And all right, knocks down the rest of those minions, and a bit of more money comes through. We see the Vamp Scepter come through to Chovy. That can either be Gunblade or more likely Blade of the Ruined King.
We've also got 5 Merc Treads built up by Griffin here. You can see Chovy so much damage dealt this game. The Ezreal sort of inflates your damage numbers because you just get to put out so much free poke, but as we get further on and further on into this match, we are going to see Griffin adopt a style where it's not about forcing these all-in fights, and it's more about whittling down their opponents before they go in.
Yeah, and listen, if Griffin's going to win this game, I feel like it's going to be a Chovy hard carry. Because we have to think back about the way this started. 3 kills immediately to HKA, armor for the Sion in the top lane, items and tempo for the bot lane in Syndra and Leona, and it was Tarzan and Chovy who very quickly picked up the double kill in the river to start off Chovy. And since then, I feel like a lot of the debts are just being paid for what happened early game, and now maybe Chovy and Viper are ready to fight back.
Revealed, tries to kite away. Nice warhop into the kick. This could be a pretty easy kill 3v1. He keeps trying to kite, keeps trying to flash, jumps away yet again, but the second stun is going to be landed, and that could be followed through. Stopwatch opens up, but the ult's going to go right on top, and Chovy grabs his second kill of the game.
And at the same time, Hong Kong Attitude do not respond with the Baron on the other side because they don't have a marksman. They don't have the DPS to get through it quick enough.
Their Baron would be so slow.
It would be so slow here, so I think it's actually a genius call from Griffin, even past 20 minutes, to send 3 members down towards the bottom side of the map. It pays off big for them, and that should mean that Viper is able to secure that tower as well.
I like that it feels like Chovy always has a buff. Like he's basically been on blue buff or red buff for seemingly the whole game as he continues to stack more and more gold. And this could be what tries to open up the game for Griffin. I'm curious to see if we're going to see another Sion ultimate out of 3Z, because with the way this game is going, Viper is getting stronger and stronger in side lanes. Once he gets Trinity Force, he'll probably be able to 1v1 anyone in the game. Chovy is consistently getting poke out in the mid lane. and it almost feels like a bit of an inevitability unless Hong Kong Attitude can find a fight. So I wonder if they're going to do that, because sometimes you're hesitant if the fights are so difficult or if there's not a good window, because you're worried that the fight could just end the game for you. Why don't we just wait for the other team to make a mistake? Oftentimes, if we start watching this game at 2 minutes, it's not Griffin who makes the big mistake that leads to a triple kill.
Yeah, so the way that Hong Kong Attitude have to play out the game in order to be the ones playing on the offensive is actually just group up. Forget about side lanes for a little bit. You need to bring 4 or 5 members around the river to push in and apply deep vision. And that's what they have right now. They have priority in both top lane and bottom lane. So 3Z and m1ssion both start moving on over, but they're actually setting up for a player on bottom side potentially with Crash sitting here. He doesn't necessarily have to look for the dive, but just the tremor sense means that m1ssion can step up very far forward, and they have the option to bring in Kaiwing for potential play.
Game state keeps going Griffin's way. 1,000 gold lead for them. Again, we saw that triple kill at 1 minute. The game since has gone 4-1 in kills in Griffin's favor. They have absolutely gotten more done. They've been better around the map, more Drakes, more everything picked up here aside from turrets, which, hey, credit HKA for that one, but it's still not giving them a gold lead. Ocean Drake has spawned, and you can see the mid lane going back and forth. Now Sword taking a fight with 3Z right here. We'll see if they can knock that one down, because Leeson behind him as well. Ward hops over, lands the kick, and he's got a lot of armor, but he's got no support at all. The anchor comes in as well. 4v1, and Sword grabs that one. And yet again, HKA have nothing to do on the other side. They don't even go for the Drake with no one near that river.
Yeah, they have to respect the potential Baron to come through from Griffin, but that call is not going to be made. It's just Griffin continuing to find these picks, continuing to edge a little bit further forward in this match and get the items coming through. Now Viper, the Trinity Force that we mentioned, has been purchased. Chovy is going to continue to scale on this Ezreal and just be more and more monstrous as the game goes on.
And it feels like HK is just so scared of Chovy in the mid lane. They have no pressure in the mid lane, and that's what is allowing Griffin to kind of get 12 seconds to kill 3Z's Sion. It's not like they have the items yet to cut through him, but given enough time, as we saw in the last game, just hitting something over and over again sometimes works. And that's what they've kind of had to do to Sion, but it's because they bought themselves the space to do so with their mid and side lane pressure.
It's just been full control from Griffin. You look at how they've controlled the river in terms of vision. They even see Crash on this Drake at the moment, but Tarzan's playing for the top side because no one cares about the Ocean Drake at 26 minutes into the game. Griffin, they know the next objective is going to be this top side of the map.
At least they claim it. I would have thought it was pretty easy for them the last time around when the sign was going down, but at least it's still going their way. HKA finally pulled the trigger onto something, but it is a team that I feel like has just not been active here, HKA. They've been waiting around and getting picked off.
Yeah, I know that oftentimes Ocean Drake is considered the meme Drake at 25 minutes, but Griffin's a poke comp.
Yeah.
Ocean Drake is exactly what HKA needs. I'm actually very surprised that Tarzan didn't prioritize trying to deny the Ocean from Hong Kong Attitude. Griffin doesn't need it, but I feel like it's important to stop HKA from having it. I think that's actually fairly substantial for Hong Kong Attitude.
More poke on a 3Z. He's going to stay all right for this one, but waiting around in the mid lane, hoping they can keep this one alive. But the rest of Griffin is here. The poke still lands, and they're going to land the auto attacks. And their third turret goes down. All the outers are picked up. 3Z takes some damage, but still hard to push down the Sion. He's pretty tanky. Meanwhile, Akali pushing the top lane.
That's what becomes so interesting now is m1ssion does have a potential flank option on towards Griffin, but Griffin are so fluid, I feel, in their moments. They're not actually grouping up as 5 a whole lot of the time. They're staying a little bit more spread out to be able to cover their flanks like that and not actually offer themselves up as a solid initiation, because HKA would only be able to find like 1 or 2 targets, and then the rest of Griffin could very easily collapse. And now it is Viper pushing down towards that bot side of the map. Immediately as I say that, though, he does go for the recall. And I wonder if he's able to finish off his Guardian Angel off of this too, because that is a lot of power for Griffin if they want to look for the fights.
Not there just yet, but they're going to find a knock-up here on a sword. Finally, a sign of life and make it a sign of death. m1ssion grabs the kill, finally one on the board for him. HKA tie up the kill score.
And I'm glad HKA finally went for Jayce rather than going for the Irelia. But let's see if Griffin goes back. Tarzan's trying to go way in there.
Whoa! For the kick, Flash is going to be there. Flash away from Crash, gets him away from the Irelia stun. Will there be a re-engage as Kaiwing jumps forward?
He got Tarzan!
Still ult Tarzan, but he's got a teammate to safeguard too. Just keep himself alive. It's still a 5v4 in the map, but there might not be a re-engage. Keep in mind, 3Z does have the ultimate still available. If someone goes too aggressive, that's Chovy jumping right in, but they're not going to go for that play.
Don't think Chovy has quite the damage to follow through, and it is a Trinity Force, so not able to slow the targets and set up for the chase. That's the Merc Treads coming in clutch right there for Tarzan. Not sure if he went for Legend Tenacity as well on the Lee Sin, but that stun did not last very long, and it ended up being that Kaiwing was unable to connect the Zenith Blade and takes away that power play, because that was a kill from Hong Kong Attitude. If they find Tarzan, that's immediately an opportunity for the Baron too.
Well, it's putting us at this 3,000 gold difference, though. It's still Griffin, the ones who are doing better. And that's always been a good sign for them. Expected to be above HKA in this group. The early loss of G2 upset people a little bit, but it's still been a very tough game between these two squads. And we know that eventually this Baron play is going to be what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I think it's incredibly important for Griffin to win this game for a number of reasons beyond even just getting out of the group, but for their own confidence and thinking about the way the game started. With 3 kills going away, a team that has the label of chokers because they haven't won finals. If they can pull this one back.
Double stun comes in, 3Z trying to run, pops the ult, the flash to block it from Lehends. The re-engage, he's almost burning down, and that is a kill in for Chovy yet again. Stun's not gonna land. They've pushed the Irelia away, barely staying alive. 3Z's goes for him, not gonna do a whole lot of damage there. Another 1-for-0 for Griffin.
Chovy missed the timing right there to snipe out Unified coming out of the Zonia's Hourglass. They were unable to find that second kill right there. Still, the minion wave is coming through. Tarzan has ult.
Crash again, kick back into the squad. Ults to buy a little bit of time, but he's not going to go anywhere. And a second kill comes through for Griffin. Mid lane's going to fall absolutely, and now no jungler alive means a Baron attempt is there.
And an altless Leona and altless Syndra. This should be a fairly easy Baron for Griffin. We'll see if m1ssion tries to pull off some heroics. Flash and Akali ult up.
Still pushing it down. The health bars, though, fairly high. Tarzan's not a whole lot of threat. Into the front line goes Kaiwing, but he's hitting a tank. That's not going to do a whole lot right there. Stuns aren't going to land, but they're still going to knock down the Leona, and they can turn right back over to the Baron if they really wanted to, but with the respawns coming in, they decide to kill wards instead.
They're playing so low risk. That was a 5v3 with the enemy jungler dead and most of their team at full health with no ultimates on 2 of the 3 people. And they say, you know what? Better peel off and kill the support. It's because they feel so confident in fights like this, chasing down Sion, going for Unified, very close to actually picking up 3 kills. If you're going to see at the backside of this fight, the stopwatch from Unified, Chovy tries to time his WQ about a quarter second early on that one, so they only pick up 1 kill at the start.
And if they get that kill onto Unified right there, that is guaranteed the Baron. They turn, they can find that same pick, but then it's going to be a 2v5 around that objective. As we track Tarzan just sitting in the bush here, held onto his ult this entire time, wasn't really involved, and finds a really nice play. Crash wasn't quite able to react fast enough with the knock-up, and then can't really go anywhere after that.
Really slick play. Lands the Q first to make sure he has somewhere to go out and not get chased in. Even the Void Rush puts him right at his feet. So beautifully played there by Tarzan. 1-1 and 6. He's gotten pretty solid run onto this game as Griffin hold a very nice lead. 5,000 gold ahead. Ocean Drake going to be an easy one here as Chovy grabs that one.
And as they hear the Ocean Drake go down, this is now Hong Kong Attitude's time to get vision around this Baron, because this sort of feels like it could be the last stand for them, because if Griffin get this Baron, I think it's super easy to siege with this comp to play multiple lanes and close out the game. So we are looking at a team fight here for Hong Kong Attitude, and they must be able to find that perfect engage to snipe off a Chovy or a Sword, which is not an easy task.
And I think it's just going to be so difficult against 5 copies of Mercury Treads and a QSS. And I just want to take a moment to appreciate Chovy's performance so far in this game, because it's definitely been a weird one where Griffin, the heavily favored team, gives over 3 kills right at the start of the game, and I think a lot of their plans have been delayed because of that. Sword was unable to push an advantage early on 3Z. Really, that was what they were planning on playing around for most of the early games, so they had to kind of adapt and stall, but I think they've actually been able to stall this one, grow the lead 6,000. Chovy is probably around 12 or 13 CS per minute, which is incredibly high. He gets 400 CS at 32 minutes, and now it's about Griffin closing the deal on HKA.
And Chovy's off to a great start in this tournament, even in the loss yesterday, pulling off that 1 versus 2 against Caps in that middle lane. So definitely going to be tracking his progress as the series goes on as one of those really hyped up Korean mid laners, ones that we haven't seen on the international stage before as we look forward to the rest of groups and potentially a run into playoffs. All eyes are going to be on this lineup and on players like Chovy and Tarzan in particular.
Might not be too much longer now as we wait for them to finish out the Baron setup. HKA got a feel for them. They were given a gift. Some of that, actually, I would say, is their preparation. They clearly set up the play and thought they could bait something in. I want to give them credit for how the level 1 went. But you're given that, right? You succeed on that plan, and the game slips away from you steadily over time. That's got to hurt a lot. HKA not out of the game, but they've been losing their grip for a while, hoping they can find some kind of opening there. And it's now a push towards Mission. A stun's going to land, but Arcane Shift builds them a bit of space. Chovy's going to be just fine. An ultimate missing now for HKA. Reattempt towards Sword. They popped the Righteous Glory, but they still cannot find that opening.
If Hong Kong Attitude cannot kill Chovy at the start of the fight, I don't think they can actually win. Unified taking so much damage right there. And now picking the jungle.
Crash is trying to get away, but again, just kicked back into the squad. Again and again and again, Tarzan has the number. Griffin goes down, Mission rejoins the squad. Kaiwing forced to run away. There's Mission on a kill, but it's going to be one traded back now. 4v4 in the map. His 3Z is tanky. Has popped the ult, but he's again withstanding so many of these shots that his team can still put fires in. Oh, but that is a snipe. Goodbye to Unified. Now we watch Vipers out of this fight. Mission back and forth with him. Pops Guardian Angel. Does he have the damage to kill him? No, he's going to run away instead, but he's going to be taken down as they are chasing and chasing and chasing. He goes through a ward yet again. There is not a way out for poor Mission. Sword's going to find him, jumps right on top. That's the kill coming across. Griffin take that fight easily.
And poor Mission, he tried so hard. That was the strangest juxtaposition. It was like the anime battle of Akali and Irelia on one side, and then just a bunch of people punching a tank over and over again on the other side as they slowly killed 3Z. But Griffin, they get the poke at the end of the day. They only lose Tarzan. They're very careful about this Baron.
Respawn.
Oh yeah, sorry, they're waiting for Griffin's respawn. I'm like, is it gonna get stolen somehow?
Like, I don't think they're scared of a Sion or a Leona trying to come in for that steal.
Absolutely right.
Griffin now with the easy siege with that Baron buff. We see this fight one more time because at the start, it is Lehends jumping on Crash. It is interesting, though, him dropping the ultimate on Kaiwing because he knows he has the damage to actually kill Crash inside of the jungle. And then the ranged damage that Chovy is able to output alongside Sword too means they can find these pickoffs deep into the Hong Kong Attitude backline here, as I think Sword catches, boom, right between the goalposts onto Unified.
And for as much as I'm happy for Griffin to be able to come back from an early deficit, I'm a little bit disappointed and sad for Hong Kong Attitude because this is a team composition where they have a ton of engaged tools and they need to group. And they are actually the ones consistently getting spread out and picked off and have never really been able to find anything. So they will definitely have a lot to work on if Griffin is able to take advantage of this Baron and win the game.
Seems like they'll be able to. Korean teams really known for their ability to, once they get Baron, just completely crack the game and say, okay, this is guaranteed ours. It's 99-1. This is our game to win. And
those are some pretty high percentages.
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of the way the games are played out right here. And 5 turrets to 2, you're going to expect them to get at least 2 more, probably crack an inhibitor as well. Rebuff taken away, no problem there.
Sword thinks this is the last push, too. He went for the 4th serrated Dirk right there. Not going to be able to build that into anything, but will give him that extra lethality to go for this final siege right now. Griffin playing 2 lanes, ignoring top lane at the moment, knowing that if they can group up 3-2, they have a lot better chance of actually knocking onto towers.
Looking at the engage, finally Lehends gets the Aftershock off, runs away, but Kaiwing wants to re-engage, finds a stun, but again, it's only on the tank, and look at the burst damage. Mission forced out right away. A kick goes backwards, knocks up a backliner. The re-engage for 3Z finds absolutely nothing. He's thankful he's tanky. They all get away, just barely. But the health bars are so low, and the re-engage is going to look good. Sword on a rampage. Shock blast the opposing down. And now it's going to be the inhibitor cracked open. Still 1 minute and 20 seconds on the Baron buff, and they are not slowing down.
And Viper's going to go back to base, use the TP to get back and make that minion unkillable. Griffin 5v4 inside of the base, and the towers are going down.
First tower drops. They can't find any stuns here in the HKA side. They're going to push forward yet again. Nice anchor comes across. Ulti up there as well, but Viper not going to yet dive. Now he finally comes in. Look to the back line. Scattered around a little bit, but still staying alive. 5v4 fight continues. A trade of kills 1-for-1 so far, but Mission's going to drop. And with 2 left alive, they cannot defend the base. In they go for that second kill. Nexus gonna fall as well, and Griffin come back from a triple kill death at the first minute of the game, but take care of business against Hong Kong Attitude.
And aside from a level 1 which went very awry for Griffin, they do manage to control the game, go 16 kills to 6 in the subsequent 36 minutes of the game, and pick up a crucial first win for themselves at Worlds.
And they really wanted that win, Jatt, because they took absolutely no risks here. Multiple times they won fights and played it the safe way. They knew they had time working in their favor as Chovy and Viper continued to scale up and continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And as long as they sort of waited out this mid-game period where Hong Kong Attitude had power, Griffin realized that they were the team that was going to come away with the W.
And I really don't know what Griffin we're going to see for the rest of Worlds.
I don't either.
Because, yes, it's exciting to see them at the World Championship, but they're also the lowest combined kills per minute team here. So they can win, they can get leads early game, but they're not going to play the same way as everybody else. And I do wonder if this meta continues to slow down, if somehow Griffin can find comfort and improve themselves throughout this group stage.
And there are other questions we'll continue to ask, like, is Sword going to play every single game at the World Championship, or do they want to try and bring in Doran to the top lane? There are a lot of different